On today's stream, you guys, we are going to talk about, do Latinos see themselves as white? Now, just by the title, this is very controversial and it's a backroom conversation. But I seen a video that is very interesting. So, without further ado, I'm going to play this video, then I'm going to give you my thoughts. And as always, welcome to my stream. And below is our tag to support our mission. You can donate via Cash App to Elaine Kim29. It helps with video and getting seen on the algorithm. When you talk about things like this, it can be hard to be seen. So without further ado, I'm going to play this video of an actual two Latinos having a conversation about this topic, which is why I brought the conversation up and titled the video, "Do Latinos See Themselves as White?"
Friends were also Mexican, but they were white presenting like you. And all of us were walking together. But then a cop, I don't know where it came, it caused for other cop cars to pull up. I remember there was 4 cops that surrounded me, and then one that took my 3 white presenting friends over there, meaning it took 4 cops to interrogate me by myself way over here, and then one cop took the white tee presenting Latino friends of mine over there. It's almost as if one cop can handle 3 white tee people, but it takes 4 to handle a non-white tee one. You see, when this happened, we were by a river. These cops literally threatened that they were going to drown me in that river, yelling in my face, "We could get away with it because you ain't shit," etc. When this was over, I got back in the car, my friends got back in the car, and there was an understanding in that car after this was over. The understanding was, yeah, sure, we're all Latinos, we're all Mexican, but this is where we learned how you are white and I'm not. See, a lot of people think, and a lot of people, what they do, the mistake that they do when a lot of Mexican, Latinos in Latin American countries, when they are white tea presenting, they think that they could blend in with people like me, and it doesn't work, and it never has been a truth. In fact, people like me in Mexico and Central America and South America, people like me in countries, people that look like you, they treat us like shit. You see, what was very interesting to me as you were explaining all the things that you were regarding Mexico and the progress, the only people that I have observed that see progress in Mexico are white tea presenting Mexicans. Because you go to pueblos, indigenous people pueblos, they don't see. When this happened,
You guys, so let me go.
are white tea presenting Mexicans. Because you go to pueblos, indigenous people pueblos, they don't see no progress, and they never seen it. The only people who always see progress in Mexico are people that look like you, because the reality is that in Mexico and in Latin American countries is people that look like you, meaning European descendant, is usually the people that are the oppressor. To me, it's always been hypocritical when I see people that look like you, white presenting Mexicans or Latinos, that come to this country and they all of a sudden start complaining about oppression and all kinds of discrimination. It's like, you're complaining about exactly what you are and how you are in Latin American countries towards indigenous presenting people.
So, okay, guys. So that was very heavy what he said, and I am going to play another video. What I think is, I think that he's speaking his truth, right? And he stated what he experienced, guys. That was a very traumatic experience for him, and I'll play the clip again.
I don't know where it came. It caused for other cop cars to pull up. I remember there was 4 cops that surrounded me, and then one that took my 3 white presenting friends over there, meaning it took 4 cops to interrogate me by myself way over here, and then one cop took the white tee presenting Latino friends of mine over there. It's almost as if one cop could handle 3 white tee people, but it takes 4 to handle a non-white T1. You see, when this happened, we were by a river. These cops literally threatened that they were going to drown me in that river, yelling in my face, we could get away with it because you ain't shit.
And I would like to say that this is a complex and often misunderstood question. Do Latinos see themselves as white? As the PC, the political correct answer would be the Latino encompasses a vast range of racial, ethnic, and cultural backgrounds. While some Latinos may identify as white, many others do not, recognizing their indigenous, black, or mixed heritage. Factors like national origin, family history, socioeconomic status, and experiences with racism all play a significant role in how individual Latinos perceive their racial identity. Now, I would thank everyone who has joined me to explore this nuanced but important topic to discuss these diverse perspectives within the Latino community. Now, I'm actually in a relationship with Afro Latina from Cuba, okay? But she identifies as black. I've been to Puerto Rico, Cuba, and Colombia. So I have experiences dealing with the Latin community. And I live in Houston, which I mean half the population is Latino, but I would argue that here in Houston, the majority of them, when convenient, see themselves as white. And I'm not here to police how people view themselves, right? I'm not here to police how people view themselves. But I think that the non-political answer, the real meat and potatoes of the answer would go back to would lead to some uncomfortable conversations about the caste system that was created by the Spanish. And if we can't even talk about the caste system that was created by the Spanish, if we can't talk about the caste system that was created by the Spanish, then we can't even begin to have these conversations. And so I think that the Latino community is in a weird situation because many of them are mixed with European blood, and some of them still look non-white. Like if you look at the image that I have, is many Latinos that are definitely would be considered non-white. Now you got some people that would say they are basically brown Europeans, right? Um and I think that this conversation is so complex because in reality we have Afro people that we would consider Afro Latinos that are basically just the people that were not as mixed. And these people have been in Latin America for a very long time. And in Mexico, specifically Mexico, but you could go to Guatemala and Honduras too. And the president of Mexico, President Claudia Sheinbaum, just made some policies to identify and help the indigenous people who have historically been mistreated by the people who identify with the Spaniards. And we can even go back to Don war against the Mayans of the Yucatan. Like this goes back very far. And then we know how Native Americans was treated in the United States, right? So it has never been cool to identify as Native American in the United States or in Mexico because they were the people that were being conquered. And so now we have it to where do they see themselves as white to get privileges? But if they see themselves as white, then they have to denounce their indigenous ancestry. But then if they cling to the indigenous ancestry, then they go against getting rights for themselves, right? So I just think that it's a very interesting conversation, you guys. I think that is very interesting when one has to identify with people that are causing them problems, right? Currently, we have a lot of smoke in the air dealing with ICE, deportation, Latinos for Trumps, MAGA, and depending on what side of the fence you're on, and I'm not here to police what side of the fence that is. I'm not here to tell anybody who they should vote for, who they shouldn't vote for. I don't believe that anybody should be mistreated. I'm not I gotta state that because we live in a time where if you talk about what we're experiencing, what we're seeing, people automatically think that you are just promoting discrimination. That's not it at all. What I'm really saying is on this image, you have a picture of a European. On this other picture, you have a picture of a person who is probably mixed with European, but the Europeans still don't identify them as one of them. Okay. Now, this has been going on for a long time in the Spanish history. So this is not anything new, right? The Spanish were the first ones over here. They were the first ones to come in contact with the indigenous people. And uh it's been a lot going on. So what I want to do, guys, I want to share my screen again, and I am going to go into some of the history of this. And I made some short videos about this on my dealing with this, but we're going to have to go to back, do a little clip on what was going on with Mexico and the era of Don Porfirio, and when he was the dictator or president of Mexico, and what was going on when they were having conflict with Native Americans in Mexico, guys. So stay tuned. Things got so bad for the Mayans of Yucatan during this time period, and they were put in this servitude and having to do all of this backbreaking work. Their women were beaten, the men were beaten, they had to work in these fields, and they had these overseers that would just beat them and mistreat them and even unalive them. So what began to take place was one happening where an entire Mayan village named of Taipei was completely wiped out of men, women, children, and even the elderly. And the whites and the Masitos murdered all of these people. So the Mayans are going to start a caste war, which lasts for a very long time, where they try to expel all of the whites and all of the Masitos out of the Yucatan by unaliving them. So a caste war took place in Mexico um over 100 years ago, you guys, right? And it was the indigenous people versus the mixed Latinos, the Masitos, and the people who would be Blanquito or white, And so this part of the history is not really talked about a lot. I mean, now if you see, like, then you would have some type of reference point, but many people do not. Many people do not. And then I'm going to talk about later how after the legacy of the Spanish American War and the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo led to the Latinos in this country being classified as white. But we're going to get into that. But I'm like I said, I'm not making this video to promote discrimination. I actually love the Latino culture. Like, some of my favorite countries are in Latin America. Colombia is one of my absolute favorite countries. I can't wait to go to Mexico City to visit the National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico. Um, so by no means am I making this video to be derogatory. I am actually making this video to spark conversation. And I know a lot of people just came into the stream, but I made a clip talking about referencing what a Latino stated, okay, about the discrimination he faced as a dark skinned Latino and how this caste system is still very real. And I think that I'm glad that they're finally having conversations about it because no one should be mistreated based on the color of their skin. So, inclusion of the Don Perfidio's era, his era is marked with great controversial because on one hand, he improved Mexico by opening it up to a trade with the United States and exporting goods like coffee, agave, and different natural resources. But then on the other hand, the day to day of the average um Hispanic or Mexican that was not part of the upper class or middle class was terrible. They were forced to work at haciendas. They were physically abused, abused in other ways, the women, the children, and it was an incredibly tough time. So in conclusion, okay. Now, another thing I want to talk about, let me get into a little bit about what was going on with the Spanish American War. So, stay with me. In the Spanish American War, you guys, what we had going on was in the Spanish American War, it was a racial conflict, okay? Slavery was outlawed in Mexico despite the indigenous people still being mistreated. And uh but at the same time in the United States, slavery was still rampant. Slavery was still legalized. So when the United States and Mexico went to war, the question then became the Latinos or the people who was of mixed indigenous heritage and all of this stuff. And mind you guys, they had people that would be considered of African descent in Mexico and in the United States. So everyone was fighting basically to be part of the caste that would not be discriminated against, right? So the Battle of the Alamo had racial undertones and really was is not taught like this. But my perspectives are after reading and learning about it, and I'm going to play a clip shortly, is that the clip really the war really was about slavery, you guys. Because if Mexico has outlawed slavery south of the border of the United States, and the United States this is fighting to keep slavery, then what would happen to all of the dark skinned or dark brown, whatever you want to call it, Moranos in Texas and Arizona and all these different places. And at this time, Mexico stretched had a big chunk of the United States, half of the United States. So what would happen to these people if they lost the war? They would go into slavery, you guys. This is why they were fighting, guys. So let me play the clip. So the Battle of the Alamo definitely the racial undertones because the Anglo-Saxons who were Mexican citizens, they were Protestant, they spoke different languages than the Mexicans, which they thought that they were better than the Mexicans, and they actually expelled Mexicans out of Texas, right? And so did you guys know that? Did you know that in the the 19th century that Mexicans were expelled out of well, Texas was Mexico, but that the Anglos kicked Latinos, as we would call them today, out of Texas, and this was in the 1840s, 1850s, 1830s. Did you guys know this? So, and at the time, we had President James K. Polk who was doing this, guys. And so, uh, a lot of things that's going on today, guys, if you don't understand history, if you don't understand history, a lot of what's going on today is probably going to confuse you. And you're probably going to be thinking, why is this going on? But it's really has to do with racial identity. And I know that's not what anybody wants to hear. Nobody wants to hear that because no one should be mistreated based on the color of their skin. But based on the historical framework, this is what has been going on. This is what is happening today, unfortunately. They wanted to practice slavery, and this brought into a lot of conflict. Meanwhile, it was an identity issue going on because you had Native Americans, tribes there, who also were resisting Mexico and did not want to view themselves as Mexican because they had been resisting the Spanish Empire. So it was a lot that was going on in this time period. And unfortunately, this tale is not really talked about enough.
Se ve
So
talap
so I'm going to wrap it up soon, but guys, I just really wanted to dive into this topic because I am a historian and I make videos about a diverse range of topics. Like I dive into history, dealing with Native American history, dealing with a lot of different things. Like for example, we're going to get into a little bit on the Native American side because the Latinos, they have a range of identity. They can claim to be white when it's convenient. They can claim to be Native American or indigenous, and they can claim to have African DNA also, and all of it would be true because they are mixed. And this is why I don't think people should have to choose, like when it comes to like these terms like white, black, yellow. It doesn't really make sense. And we as adults, we gotta realize this, guys. Elk was not allowed to vote. The ruling. Okay, I'm going to talk about this guy who was a Native American, and this has a lot to do with this conversation. He was a Native American and to he moved to a white he moved to a white he was a Native American that left the reservation and moved around whites, and he tried to vote, and the registrar wouldn't allow him to vote. And then this case, and then it became a question of citizenship, you guys. Could a Native American move into the Christian controlled area and be considered an American? And this was going on, guys, 150 years ago. And this happened in Utah, but it has ramifications of what's going on now. We're basically having the same conversations that we had 150 years ago. Supreme Court decide. The court said no. I want to find the video. Stay with me for a second, you guys. Bear with me. But you guys gotta really hear this. Like this was when I learned this, I was like, what? And this went to the Supreme Court, you guys. Versus Wilkinson. Okay, here we go. So here's a simplified version of the Supreme case. John Elk, a Native American, left his tribe and started living among white citizens in Omaha, Nebraska. He wanted to vote, claiming that he had become a U.S. citizen by just choosing to live outside his tribe and follow U.S. laws. But Charles Wilkins, his registrar, refused to let him register to vote, saying Elk was not a U.S. citizen. Main question: Can a Native American become a U.S. citizen just by leaving their tribe and living like a U.S. citizen? What did the Supreme Court decide? The court said no. Just leaving your tribe and living in U.S. society doesn't make you a citizen. Why did they say that? The 14th Amendment versus. Wow. So a lot of people don't know this. A lot of people don't know about John Elk and the Supreme Court case and uh, the things that were going on back then. And a lot of people don't even want to face the reality of what was going on. And we don't want to even study history. I'm going to play about two more clips, guys. Then I'm going to wrap up the stream. It's a deep conversation. It's nuanced. By no means am I trying to promote discrimination. I'm anti-discrimination. But we can't even talk about American history, you guys, without getting into like this information. And it's very unfortunate that we have a lot of this going on. And simultaneously, while we have the Battle of the Alamo, you have Native Americans being captured and enslaved in the western part of the country. So the Battle of the Alamo, the Spanish American War, all of those was about slavery, you guys. It was about, could Latinos be enslaved? This was what the wars was about. Not just about black people, but they were the Anglos was arguing that they were not white, that the Latinos were not white 150 years ago. Okay, so let me get into that topic. So after Texas becomes an independent territory, right? And uh this puts Mexico in a weaker position against the United States. Now, the United States, they had about 22 million people. In Mexico, they had about 7 million people. So what ends up happening is you have President Santa Anna in Mexico, and then you have James K. Polk in the United States. So James K. Polk puts his United States military on the Mexican side of the Rio Grande. Eventually, shots are fired. James K. Polk says that American has died on American soil by the hands of a Mexican, which is really untrue because they were in Mexico. Then this brings them to war in Mexico. The story ends with Santa Anna being forced, because he couldn't really fight a war, even though he tried, him having to sell the western states of the United States for $15 million. And as a result, a lot of the Hispanic people that were in Mexico would now become American. Now, mind you, during this time period, about 20 years or 15 years before the Civil War, slavery is still legal. And so slavery was, so here's what happened. A slow recap, some backstory for those that don't know. Mexico became a country in 1821. Okay. So Mexico freed themselves from Spain. When they freed themselves from Spain, Spain cut off trade with Mexico. When they cut off trade with Mexico, and then they told Mexico that they couldn't trade with the other colonies that is still held, like Cuba, Puerto Rico, other places in Latin America. And so as a result, Mexico is a sitting duck, and they have a vast territory way up to Oregon, all the way down to countries in Central America. And then what's going to happen is it's going to become defragmented. But the real question was, would these people be considered white or non-white? Now, we're not even talking about skin color for a second. They were arguing white as a social hierarchy, as a class. And the Anglo people, the people that spoke English, said that they were not white. Okay. And they would be eligible for slavery. So like a true businessman, Santana is going to make a deal. Like, all right, you want this land. Slavery is going on. Consider these people white. I sell it to you. You have the land. And he wanted them to be considered white so they would not go into slavery, you guys, because slavery was had been outlawed in Mexico, but it was still legal in the United States. And then 20 years into the future, a civil war is going to be fought about slavery. But I'm providing context. A lot of times in school, you get taught facts, but you don't get context. This is context. This is why and how Latinos or Hispanic became white. They didn't become white because of the color of their skin, no disrespect. They became white because they had the land and they didn't want the ruling class who were mixed with white, but they was a mestizo class really. They didn't want their brethren to go into slavery because we all know that a lot of people from Mexico are dark brown, and so they will be eligible for slavery according to the white people that was in the United States, the Anglos. And the Anglo-Saxons, they wanted to enslave the Mexicans. So what ended up happening was they passed the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which basically gave them all of the land um in exchange for as a legal status that the United States would consider the Latinos white. All right. Now, guys, I'm going to go into some nuanced conversation. I'm kind of going to switch up the conversation a little bit. Just tell me what you think. Um, Now this is Graham Hancock, who is a researcher, and we're going to go into some of the artifacts that's in the National Museum of Anthropology in the in Mexico. Now, if you had all of this race mixing in Mexico and in Latin America, the question would be, what did they look like before they became mixed?
Before the Aztecs and before the Maya, there were a culture who are referred to as the Olmecs. Again, we don't know what else. That's what the Aztecs called them. They called them the Olmecs, and it means the rubber people because that rubber producing area of Mexico. They worked in giant megalithic constructions. That what they're most famous for is these huge carved human heads, which can be on a scale of up to 20 to 25 tons in weight, and which have curious features which have been interpreted variously as Polynesian, African, don't look like classic Native American features. But one of the things I've realized is that there is no classic Native American feature. That Native Americans are for the Aztec.
I'm going to play that clip again because first of all, this guy has millions of dollars to get his platform this big. And we have been taught this narrative, and it's so destructive. It's so destructive, and did this to so many different people of the past, rewriting their identity, telling them what they were, and we just have to try to keep an open mind and create a dialogue. Because sophisticated beings can use words, language, and communication to convey a message. If we have to start resorting to name calling, violence, then that really means that we are not as intelligent as we are, or as we think we are, because we should not have to use violence and these type of things in order to express ourselves. The highest level of communication is to accurately convey a message so that violence does not have to be used, right? I would agree with that.
And before the Maya, there were a culture who are referred to as the Olmecs. Again, we don't know what they called themselves. That's what the Aztecs called them. They called them the Olmecs, and it means the rubber people because that a rubber producing area of Mexico. They worked in giant megalithic constructions. What they're most famous for is these huge carved human heads, which can be on a scale of up to 20 to 25 tons in weight, and which have curious features which have been interpreted variously as Polynesian, African, don't look like classic Native American features. But one of the things I've realized is that there is no classic Native American feature. Native.
Now, I'm going to play another video, guys, because personally, I think that a lot of the people that would be labeled as black today, we are mixed up in this as well, right? And I believe that a lot of people that would be labeled as Afro-Latino are, it's just really a misnomer. It's like something that we're told, and we're given this narrative saying that these people come from Africa. But then ironically, I just played a bunch of history and showed you how words and names change over time, right? So let's just get into this. Just tell me what you think. You can tell me in the comments if you think, it's pseudoscience or whatever. But this is actually, I'm gonna play a few videos. One is from the London Museum in the UK in London, and one is from a museum of National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico, you guys. Mexico City, right? The biggest museum in Mexico, right? So this is not nothing I'm making up. Now, I do attach my theories to it, but this is actual real artwork, right? So check this. So my question is, are Black Americans indigenous to the Americas? So, hold on, I'm getting a phone call. So are Black Americans indigenous to the Americas, guys? And I would say yes. Okay? I would say yes. But see, when we show images like this can anger some people. Like, it doesn't get much realer than that. Like, just look at it. I don't even. Now, how could I find a picture that coexists with that in modern times? Like, let me just go back a little bit. Like, it doesn't get much realer than that. Like, just look at it. I don't even have to, I could end the stream right there. How could something from 3,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago to what's going on now coexist seamless? And somebody would try to argue with me. Now, that's not anything that I made up, guys. Like, this is actually in the Museum of Anthropology. And so we can see a clear connection, you guys. So I'm going to do a couple more clips. Like I said, I think that is very interesting. And it's just to promote good dialogue, guys. It's not hatred or anything like that. I'm not in discrimination of any kind. I got to repeat that by 3-4 times because they have people that they get really hostile. I get called really bad names. Mind you, guys, I'm certified in this. Like, I actually have a degree in history. I'm not a person just on the internet talking. Like, I put work in. You feel what I'm saying? So if you have a theory, promote your theories. Most of everything that we know are theories. Einstein had theories. This is just theories. There's a lot that we don't know, you guys. Did you know that? What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this, then I'm going to show you this, and then we're going to go back and forth with it like that, okay? So stay with me. And I hope you're having a good day, by the way. My name is Brian. Welcome to my stream. I'm going to show you images of ancient artifacts. Now, let me go back a little bit. Now, this is a headpiece from the 3,000 years ago, guys. And let me help you learn how to calculate dates. So let's say you have a date that says 100 BC. That's not saying that that was 1,000 years ago. What you do is you take the date in question, like 1000 BC, and you add it to our current date, right? Which is 2025, right? So then that would give us 3025. Then you subtract one, the number one. Then so that would means that would be 3024 years ago. And when we're saying that we're in 2025, what they are saying, the people that created the Gregorian calendar, they're saying that we are 2025 years from the birth of the person known as Jesus Christ. That's what that means. Did you know that? So before people start trying to just come for me in the comments and arguing with me, cool. How I look at things is like this: it's either true or it's false. Now I'm gonna kind of play this last video, then I'm gonna pivot back to my original point. Do Latinos see themselves as white? I'm gonna play the last video of what a Latino is saying, and I just want to bring up these conversations because blacks, whites, Latinos, we have been intermixing and commingling with one another for thousands of years. And for some reason, guys, we have this plague of um miseducation that has us separated in these different little groups. And we have hatred on our hearts because depending on who's seen as white is related to how much resources you get. That's really what it boils down to, is that if you're considered white, you get more resources. And if you're non-white, you get discriminated against. And this is the caste system that the Spanish created, that the British adopted. I'm going to show you this, then I'm going to show you this, and then we're going to go back and forth with it like that, okay? So stay with me. And I hope good day, by the way. My name is Brian. Welcome to my stream. I'm going to show you images of ancient artifacts, and this is from the Museum of the National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico. So look at this figure, right? And then watch this. So if you looked at that image and then you look at this image, you'll definitely see how these images correlate to one another. Okay. How could a picture just let's pause for a second. How could a picture from um over 3,000 years ago coexist with a picture in modern times? So now let's get back to the Native Americans for a second, right? The people that they claim, and all of this stuff. So let's get back to that for a second. And we're going to go into what was going on with them, right? Because when they place us in these little categories, we branch off and we have like a separate history, right? So let me go into the Native Americans and what was going on out west, and which were later colonized by the Europeans. Then we're going to talk about the Indian Act of 1850, which basically, according to the author, worked to further legalize the subjugation of Native Americans. Then we're going to talk about a new era of Indian bondage, okay? A new era of Indian bondage, guys. And what was going on in this time period, guys. So now we're going to talk about Utah. Utah is a beast, okay? I've been to Utah. I've been out west. I've been to like where the Navajos live and stuff like that. I've been to all of the states on the mainland except those north of New York. So that's about 45 states, in which were later colonized by the Europeans. Then we're going to talk about the Indian Act of. So what was going on out west, you guys, is that they were enslaving the Native Americans out west, right? And what the Native Americans who got weapons from the Europeans was then later able to enslave other Europeans, right? Now, I was talking about the caste system for a second, and stay with me just stay with me. I was talking about the caste system, and then I'm going to play how this relates to what's. In fact, I'm gonna play the what's going on now, and then we're going to go to the caste system, right? Because it all correlates, right? This is the world that they created, and here we are. So this image is of a Brazilian, but if you just looked at her, you wouldn't really know that she was Brazilian. But check. I hope that it plays well on your end. I hope that you can hear what she's saying.
Like for those of you that don't know me, I'm an immigrant, right? I immigrated from Brazil like almost 10 years ago now, and I clean Airbnbs for a living. And I arrived to one of my job sites today, and there's a car with a California permanent fleet sticker on the plate, which, if you don't know, that's an undercover ICE car. And I'm sorry, I'm trying not to be too, like, and then today I had to, and I never thought I was gonna have to do this, but today I had to text my friends being like, please check on me later, because please just, like, make sure I'm still here. And this is so inhumane. Like, I'm scared of going to do my own fucking job because I'm scared that they're gonna be waiting there to check my paper. Like, for those of you that don't.
And she was crying because she was in jeopardy, guys, of being kicked out of the country because she came here as a child, right? She came here as a child. And according to the new laws that exist, they were willing to kick them out of the country, which we all know what's going on. But it goes back to my question: do Latinos see themselves as white? Now, let me play this video of what an actual Latino is saying, and
etc.
and
And my three friends were also Mexican, but they were white presenting like you. And all of us were walking together. But then a cop out of nowhere came. It caused for other cop cars to pull up. I remember there was 4 cops that surrounded me, and then one that took my 3 white presenting friends over there. Meaning it took 4 cops to interrogate me by myself way over here, and then one cop took the white tea presenting Latino friends of mine over there. It's almost as if one cop could handle 3 white tea people, but it takes 4 to handle a non-white tea one. You see, when this happened, we were by a river. These cops literally threatened that they were going to drown me in that river, yelling in my face, we could get away with it because you ain't shit, etc. When this was over, I got back in the car, my friends got back in the car, and there was an understanding in that car after this was over. The understanding was, yeah, sure, we're all Latinos, we're all Mexican, but this is where we learned how you are white and I'm not. See, a lot of people think, and a lot of people, what they do, the mistake that they do when a lot of Mexican Latinos in Latin American countries, when they are white tea presenting, they think that they could blend in with people like me, and it doesn't work, and it never has been a truth. In fact, people like me in Mexico and Central America and South America, people like me in countries, people that look like you, they treat us like shit. You see, what was very interesting to me as you were explaining all the things that you were regarding Mexico and the progress, the only people that I have observed that see progress in Mexico are white tea presenting Mexicans. Because you go to pueblos, indigenous people pueblos, they don't see no progress and they never seen it. The only people who always see progress in Mexico are people that look like you, because the reality is that in Mexico and in Latin American countries is people that look like you, meaning European descendant, is usually the people that are the oppressor. To me, it's always been hypocritical when I see people that look like you, white presenting Mexicans or Latinos, that come to this country and they all of a sudden start complaining about oppression and all kinds of discrimination. It's like, you're complaining about exactly what you are and how you are in Latin American countries towards indigenous presenting people. And so that's why I've always been very, very apartheid when it comes to the white Latino. But then
okay, Now, I like to say I'm not promoting discrimination of any kind. I'm just sharing what the young man was saying, and we're going into do Latinos view themselves as white. Okay. Now, we were getting into the history of it. I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to go into back again. Sometimes we got to revisit this. We got to understand what was going on in Mexico be 150 years ago. Like we got to kind of start to understand what was going on in Mexico, and not just Mexico, but Latin America in general, and the caste system that was placed on this land, right? Don Porfirio, one of Mexico's most well-known yet controversial figures, became president in 1877 after 50 years of political instability in Mexico, and his reign is going to last for 33 years. He is most well known for being the first Mexican president to sit down with a United States President, William Taft, in El Paso, Texas, and he is also known for building railroads, infrastructure, and bringing Mexico out of this dark period at the expense of the indigenous people. The indigenous at the expense of the indigenous people. So this, man, it gets really heavy, and we are going to overcome this potentially if we talk about it. And I know it makes people uncomfortable. So just brace yourself. Indigenous people, the Mayan of Yucatan, who always fought to be independent of the Spanish, had not seen any progress since the conquest of Hernan Cortez. And these people are going to be the underbelly of the Mexican society. So this is the caste system. You have the Peninsulares, that's the people born from Spain. Then you got the Creoles. The Creoles are actually the children of the Peninsulares that's born in Mexico. Now, this is the current ruling class in Mexico, the Creoles, the people who are white or European or mostly European, but then their parents come straight from the mainland, right? This is what colonization is. Then you have the mestizos and the mulattoes. They are the people who are mixed with the Creoles and the indigenous or African people, right? The people that they claim to be African, right? The darker skinned people. Then you have everybody that's at the bottom and is based on your how dark you are and the race, that if you choose not to adopt the religion and you're rejecting colonization, you're going to be at the bottom of the caste system. And I think that this is part of the identity crisis that goes on, where it's like, and it's normal, guys. This is something that, imagine the children born into this. The, you can't even really blame people like or get angry. It's like you have babies born and they're forced to choose essentially which parent. Like if your parents are married and they divorce and you have to choose which parent you're going to go with. This is essentially on a grand scale what was taking place. Society, and they are put into servitude to create and get these exported to the United States, where people are forced to work, beaten, or okay. So in ending my stream, you guys, uh, I'm going to go into what was going on one last time with the uh the Native Americans in regards to the laws that they passed. And this law, and it's so relevant, but I'm gonna just get into it. Versus Wilkinson's. So here's a simplified version of the Supreme case. John Elk, a Native American, left his tribe and started living among white citizens in Omaha, Nebraska. He wanted to vote, claiming that he had become a U.S. citizen by just choosing to live outside his tribe and follow U.S. laws. But Charles Wilkins, his registrar, refused to let him register to vote, saying Elk was not a U.S. citizen. Main question: can a Native American become a U.S. citizen just by leaving their tribe and living like a U.S. citizen? What did the Supreme Court decide? The court said no. Just leaving your tribe and living in U.S. society doesn't make you a citizen. Why did they say that? The 14th Amendment first. Okay, guys. And so this has big ramifications with a lot of stuff. And I can't, it's no way that I could talk about the diverse history of what was going on uh in the here without start giving you some backstory. But let me show you what was going on in Europe for a second, right? Because we always talk about the Americas. Let me tell you what was going on in Europe before they got here. And I think that that's one of the things that a lot of people get caught up in is like, what was going like, have you ever thought about that? All right, if Christopher Columbus came here in 1492, what was going on in Europe before then? I don't know, man. I think about it all the time. Is going to put you to death. So they burned people at the stake. John Wycliffe in England, they burned him at the stake. They didn't kill Martin Luther only because he had friends in high places that protected him. But multiple people are going to be burned at the stake, hundreds, right? And this is a precursor to the witch trials. But women are going to be burned at the stake, men are going to be burned at the and why were they doing this? They were doing this because they wanted people to accept, and I'm about like this is just historical context, right? You can go and actually research the Reformation movements yourself, okay? So when I'm say this statement, I'm not trying to offend anyone's religion, their belief system, nothing like that, okay? This is just for historical context. If you at the time they were the Catholic Church and the different forms of Christianity and the interpretation, they were fighting over which form of the faith of Christianity would people believe in, right? Would they believe in the Catholic version or would they believe in some of the other versions of Christianity that was coming out of Europe? Originally, most during the medieval period, most people in Europe were illiterate. The only people that could read in Europe, and you got to understand too, Rome fell, and when Rome fell, a lot of the literacy rate went down, and so the only people that could read was the clergy and people that was trained in Latin. Then what ends up happening is the printing press is created in Gatlinburg, Germany. And then when the printing press is created, information is able to be disseminated more rapidly, you guys. Right. And so what the Europeans used to take over they used the printing press, which allowed them to spread their message on a wide scale. When at the time, uh that gave them a power, right? Then two, they were able to use gunpowder, right? And when they was able to use gunpowder, this gave them advantage over other people, right? The printing press, gunpowder, and then they end up developing and learning to use the compass, right? Now, this is not me saying this. This is what a former professor at Yale University, John Merriam, this is from his book, The History of Europe. This is what one of the most well-informed historians stated, who is also European, right? So sometimes when we get into this topic, a lot of times people start trying to come for me. Listen, I actually read books, right? So I'm just throwing this stuff out there to further the conversation. Now, the only reason why I'm playing this video, and then this will be my last one, is to kind of give an idea of what was going on. The reason why these people accepted this stuff was the Spanish Inquisition did horrible things to the indigenous people, you guys, to make them accept what later became. So that's why they see themselves as whatever they see themselves as, and some people still resist it. Some people still they still wasn't able to get all of the people to stop believing in their indigenous beliefs, which I find is remarkable. That just goes to show how resilient humans are. The state, um, a separate group, the Anabaptists, they believe that if you that children should not be baptized essentially because they are innocent, and adults should be baptized because they have more understanding. They are going to ironically drown them. So it was the two reformations was one, people not believing in the Catholic way anymore, and then they're going to split into different fractions of Protestantism. So Henry VIII of England, he's going to split the entire Church of England, Anglican Church, from their belief system from the Pope, because he wanted to divorce his wife, and this was against the rules of the Catholic faith. So he went through a series of wives because he wanted to bear a son, and he ended up killing one of his wives. Different things happened with his wives, but basically he got enough power to make his own rules. And different sects in Germany, England, France, a lot of different places, so many sub religions of the Protestants or different sects of Christianity is going to be created. Now, question: why are so many different sects of Christianity exist? Well, this is the reason why. Especially if you grew up in the West, you're used to seeing so many different types of church: the Mormon church, the Catholic church, the Lutheran church, the Methodist church, the Protestant church, the Baptist church. This entire movement from the 1300s all the way up until the 16th, 1700s, this is the reason why they had two reformations. So the counter reformation is going to be the Holy Roman Emperor or Empire, and well, both the emperor and the empire, and the Pope trying to regain people who are converting to these other religions. So this is leading up to the religious wars of Europe of the 16th and 17th century. And this is just simultaneously while this is going on, the conquistadors and the people that's coming to the Americas, when they talk about fleeing, the founding fathers were fleeing persecution, so they came to the Americas. Well, that's the vague sixth grade answer that they give. What they're not actually talking about is that people were being burned alive, people were being drowned, people were being tortured. The Spanish Inquisition and their torture methods, medieval torture methods, the things that were going on at the time, is the reason that they were fleeing religious persecution. And so in the Americas, that's the same thing that they're going to do to the Native Americans and to the Africans and to anyone else that they could find over here to convert to Catholicism, because in Europe at the time, there were these religious wars taking place at the same time that Hernan Cortez, Christopher Columbus, and all of these people are coming to America. Simultaneously in Spain, Italy, Germany, and all these other countries in Europe, these prominent countries or countries that will come into prominence, were these religious wars. And that's essentially what chapter so that was me talking about what was going on in Europe, you guys. And so, man, it's just interesting. I tell you guys, do your own research, right? Um But I guess I could show you this, right? If I got your attention this far, let's talk about the distance between Morocco, which would be considered Africa, and Spain. You know, and this just shows you like we've been brainwashed, you guys. When you look at Spain, where is Gibraltar, and then you look at like Tangrir, or basically what I'm trying to tell you is Spain and what they consider to be Africa is separated distance. Let's go to AI. Check this. 5 miles. 6 miles. Okay? And they said the total length of Morocco Spain land border is approximately 11.5 miles. Guys. So when these people before the conquistadors and all of these people started coming over here, they had already been mixing with non-white people. That they already had been mixing with a diverse group of people. You understand? So like a lot of times, like people, I don't understand the way we think. Sometimes it's like we think as if people are just meeting each other for the first time. People been meeting each other. Do you know how old the world is? But let's talk about the Asians for a second, because this has a lot to do with everything. A lot of Asians are going to be sent to Mexico when King Philip takes over the land that they renamed the Philippines. They're going to start shipping Asians to Mexico and to the New World, and this is from the 16th century onwards. So a lot of the indigenous people or people that would later be named indigenous people are actually remixed with people that's from the Philippines or from the Pacific. And a lot of people don't know this because, like I say, in school, we're taught facts. We're not really taught context. So let's talk about the people that we now refer to as Filipinos. So the second vice of New Spain, Luis des Velasco, is going to send Miguel Lopez Conquistador to the Philippines, and he is going to set up the encomienda system there. They are going to create a mestizo racial class. They're going to send Spaniards there and to create a Peninsulores class, and they are going to enforce their government and hierarchy and colonize the lands. Well, they're also going to export Filipino people to the New World in Americas and put them into servitude in Mexico as well as in Central America. So they're going to use the Filipino country as a base to export and import resources to the New World as well as Asia. So the play was the same play no matter where they went. You go there, you mix with the women, you take over the land, and then after you do that, after you do that, you you create a new racial class, the Masito class. They did this over and over again everywhere that they went. Okay, and then the identity of the people that they just conquered is fractured, really, because it's like, am I this? Am I that? And we see the same thing going today with biracial people. You know, a lot of biracial people, and my heart goes out to them. They are uh really suffering from hate in a way, because it's like if they consider themselves to be one thing, they ostracize the other one, and then we go into uh, well, let's just get into it. I like to play videos to just demonstrate, right? So let's go into this, right? Francis Chris Whistling said, and this is the basis for my discussion tonight, guys, on why racism exists, but also relating to the unspoken rules navigating iterating in a divided world. So I am going to play this lecture, then we're going to go into modern times and what's going on in the world. So thank you for joining me.
About what is going on. See, we've been thinking, and God bless Dr. Martin Luther King, a minister but a great political scientist. He said it's about love. Everybody should love. And he got killed.
Francis Chris Whistling said, and this is and what she was going into is that if everyone mixed, right? If everyone just expressed their love and the love was expressed sexually, is what she's going to say, then the white population needs to exist, right? And this is, she argued that that's the basis for the racism, essentially. You know what I mean? Like, this was the basis for how racism was created. You know what I mean? And okay, cool. So we learned that. We learned that. But then imagine all of the stuff that we have lost once the contact is made. For example, let me show you this. This just goes to show how much we don't know, right? Because so many people think that they know everything. I actually know very little. Let me state that. I don't want anybody to comment on my video and say, oh, he think, no. I don't know very much at all. And I'm humble enough to say that I know very little. All right. I am trying to learn and stop being so confused. Right. And let me share this tab and going back to the premise of how we got here to this conversation. I seen this video and this guy said something that was really interesting.
And my 3 friends were also Mexican, but they were white presenting like you. And all of us were walking together. But then a cop out of nowhere came. It caused for other cop cars to pull up. I remember there was 4 cops that surrounded me, and then one that took my 3 white presenting friends over there. Meaning it took 4 cops to interrogate me by myself way over here. And then one cop took the white tee presenting Latino friends of mine over there. It's almost as if one cop could handle 3 white tee people, but it takes 4 to handle a non-white tee one. You see, when this happened, we were by a river. These cops literally threatened that they were going to drown me in that river, yelling in my face, we could get away with it because you ain't shit, etc. When this was over,
meaning he wasn't white. That's what according to what he said, that's the understanding he got. That's the understanding I got, right? That he wasn't white. He wasn't, as he say, white presenting. He wasn't Creoles, or a Blanquito, right?
I got back in the car. My friends got back in the car. And there was an understanding in that car after this was over. The understanding was, yeah, sure, we're all Latinos. We're all Mexican. But this is where we learned how you are white and I'm not. See, a lot of people think, and a lot of people, what they do, the mistake that they do when a lot of Mexican, Latinos in Latin American countries, when they are white tea presenting, they think that they could blend in with people like me. And it doesn't work. And it never has been a truth. In fact, people like me in Mexico and Central America and South America, people like me in countries, people that look like you, they treat us like shit. You see, what was very interesting to me as you were explaining all the things that you were regarding Mexico and the progress, the only people that I have observed that see progress in Mexico are white tea presenting Mexicans. Because you go to pueblos, indigenous people pueblos, they don't see no progress and they never seen it. The only people who always see progress in Mexico are people that look like you, because the reality is that in Mexico and in Latin American countries, is people that look like you, meaning European descendant, is usually the people that are the oppressor. To me, it's always been hypocritical when I see people that look like you, white presenting Mexicans or Latinos, that come to this country and they all of a sudden start complaining about oppression and all kinds of discrimination. It's like, you're complaining about exactly what you are and how you are in Latin American countries. Or
Wow, that's a lot. So I think I'm gonna do one last thing, guys, because I just find this so interesting. I'm gonna go in a little bit about what we don't know, right? And it's a lot that we don't know, and it's a lot that I don't know. So I say ask questions; it can't hurt, right? But instead of focusing on the Latinos for a second, let's look at what happened to another group to compare and contrast. Sometimes that's easier to do, right? If they did this to the Asians, then it could you can see where I'm going with this. In 1492, Christopher Columbus discovers Hispaniola. In 1493, Alexander VI, the Pope at the time, is going to create a papal bull or a decree called the Intera Catedra. And this decree is going to say that the Spaniards and the Portuguese are going to divide the New World, and that this is going to give them the right to convert, subjugate, and to create their influence on the people that they meet and convert them to Catholicism. It's also going to create the encomienda system. And the encomienda system is also a decree where so you see they have the now this is not in the Americas for a second. This is in the Philippines, right? They came there, the people looked one way. They looked dark, they were dark complected, they had one look, right? That's what they looked like. Then in a few generations, they create a Masito class, change the look. The same thing happened here, you guys. And when I make videos talking about this, even though it's clear as day, people, because it's cognitive dissonance, because what they were able to do is say, we can claim the Masitos as indigenous because if they already biracial, so if they mix with us, then the children will come out even lighter and lighter. But we can't allow the darkest among them, who are the indigenous people, to claim to be indigenous, because then that defeats the whole purpose of why they're colonizing the land. Just a thought. Just a thought. I mean, the images speak for themselves, though. This is what they saying. I'm just reporting on what they said. This is what they said, and I'm reporting on. Racial and political hierarchy is created, and that the resources are extracted and brought back to Spain. Essentially, what we now call colonization. Wow. So, I'm gonna play this clip. And then after I play this clip, that'll be it for the stream. You know what I'm saying? That'll be it for the stream, you guys. I thank you for joining me. And really appreciate it. Which one am I gonna play? I think I'll play this one. Now since that one of them, hold on.
Before the Aztecs and before the Maya, there were a culture who are referred to as the Olmecs. Again, we don't know what they called themselves. That's what the Aztecs called them. They called them the Olmecs, and it means the rubber people, because that a rubber producing area of Mexico. They worked in giant megalithic constructions. What they're most famous for is these huge carved human heads, which can be on a scale of up to 20 to 25 tons in weight, and which have curious features which have been interpreted variously as Polynesian African, don't look like classic Native American features. But one of
Man, and it's just interesting, guys, because if they could convince people, not if they could convince people to associate with something, that's the uh form of mind control. If they can get a group of people, all of us, me too, I'm included in this. I don't want you to think that I'm reporting on something that I'm not experienced. I mean, we're all in this together. But if they could convince people to think the way that they want them to think, that's the greatest form of mind control. When I can literally control your reality and how you define yourself, that's heavy. In 1492, Christopher Columbus discovers Hispaniola. In 1493, Alexander VI, the Pope at the time, going to create a papal bull or a decree called the Intera Catedra, and decree is going to say that the Spaniards and the Portuguese are going to divide the New World, and that this is going to give them the right to convert, subjugate, and to create their influence on the people that they meet and convert them to Catholicism. It's also going to create the encomienda system. And the encomienda system is also a decree where a racial and political hierarchy is created, and that the resources are extracted and brought back to Spain, essentially what we now call colonization. Wow. Wow. Um, wow, you guys. Just magnificent. So my question is, are Black Americans indigenous to the Americas? So hold on, I'm getting a phone call. So are Black Americans indigenous to the Americas, guys? And I would say yes. Okay? I would say yes. But see, when we show images like this can anger some people. Like, it doesn't get much realer than that. Like, just look at it. I don't even have to, like, I could end the stream right there. How could something from 3,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, to what's going on now coexist seamless? And somebody would try to argue with me. So my question is, I'm getting a call, but what I want to say, you guys, is that we kind of in a situation now where the taking place, if we want to deep, can I get deep for a second? The system that they created is turning in on itself. And I'm gonna just play the of what I mean. So check this. Check this. I know I'm supposed to be done.
Gen Z will be the last generation with white majority in the US. Gen Z Americans born between 1997 and 2000 will be the last generation with a white majority, a new study has found. Updated US Census data suggests non-Hispanic white people will make up less than half the country's population by around 2045.
Okay, guys. And in closing, I'm going to play this last video. And I want you heard what they just said? They said that the white majority in 20 years is going to disappear, right? So the system that they was trying to create is failing. That's part of the whole problem. The system that, and okay, you might say you're just saying that. You don't know what you're saying. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's listen to what they're saying.
I'm Gen Z. I can't find a job. I apply to 500 to 1,000 jobs a day, and I'm completely broke. Please help.
This is what they saying. Let's just play a little bit from what they saying, right? And if we just play, sometimes you just gotta pick up game from wherever you could get it. You can't get this perspective anywhere. I'm one of the only people that'll give you the game straight no chaser like this, right? Is nowhere else. I really argue is nowhere else you can go to somebody that could speak adequately on diverse subjects like this and make it make sense. Let's listen to what they saying, right?
No white men. Like, I just like darker skin. Yeah.
Okay. Like,
Tall, not white. Like, you guys, handsome as.
man, I'm so glad we have these videos because in the past, people would probably say that we were lying. And this is part of the whole basis. It's like the whole basis is that they're trying to control who procreates with who, and it's not working. Why is it not working? Because it's not working because it's an injustice. You shouldn't have to create injustice to control people. And the Latinos are facing injustice too. So even by trying to identify with them, and I get it, they are struggling. So if they're struggling and they're Anglo, who you think they're gonna take that animosity out on? The people that they identify as other. Okay.
The cost of living in this country is.
I hate that these videos I did earlier, but basically people are struggling. So I'm gonna say this, and once
Another huge reason why marriage is on the decline is because of female empowerment and feminism, and we have to talk about that because it's something that, like you had stated earlier, that it's about things being equal.
and oh, he's literally saying this is a white Anglo person. He's literally saying in order for it to work, it cannot be equal. This is what he's saying. I'm not saying this. You feel what he's saying? This he was like, basically, women want to be equal. You can't be equal to me. All of these other people want to be equal. You cannot be equal to me. This is what they're saying. What's the problem with equality? How the just okay? It's time for me to log out. I'm gonna play that. Just literally it, because it's like it don't get much realer than that. I could see and somebody is probably going to comment like, Brian, you are just looking at it the wrong way, man. This is what they are. I only report and react to what they say. This is what they're saying, and I appreciate them because successfully they have been the smartest people on the planet. They have made everybody tune into their vibration. So I gotta give them credit. I'm not a hater at all. I respect the fact that it's like, wow, you were successfully able to get all of these people to think like you. That's amazing. Even when facts and evidence is presented, people will still go back to what you said. That's amazing to me. I gotta respect that. I'm not a hater.
And why marriage is on the decline is because of female empowerment and feminism, and we have to talk about that because it's something that, like you had stated earlier, that it's about things being equal, and it's something where if you're a woman and you're successful and you're educated, it's one of those things where why would you necessarily, especially if you don't want children, why would you go down that route? Except for, I believe being, again, a partnership or relationship is something that is healthy for people if it's a good relationship. But I think that more and more women are willing to say, I really don't need a man, and believe that.
Well, look how you treated people, bro. Look how y'all been treating people for centuries. And now they don't want to be with you and you're surprised? How could you be surprised that they don't want to be with you and they're choosing to be with other people? But then how could you be surprised, bro? Like the horrible things like that was done, bro. Like sometimes I sit back and I just think like, how could we be surprised? But then I realized that we don't have a memory. Most people don't have an ancestral memory. The way every 50 years or so, our what we know and what we've been taught about the past changes. So we don't even have an ancestral memory anymore. You don't live like your grandparents. I don't live like my grandparents. Your kids, if you manage to have some, or 100 years, they're not even gonna live like us. So yeah, they running a perfect playbook because no matter how much technology changes, they're still running the show. But things are changing, and it goes back to the Latinos viewing themselves as white. That was just a playbook that they ran, that the Anglos ran. And I'm not trying to hate on them, but they left a track record saying what they did. You know what I'm saying? But now we in this one problem. The problem is that they are no longer reproducing with one another. Because in order to they have to poison the environment. The people that now I'm not talking about your next door neighbor, okay? I'm talking about the global players in this. They have to poison the environment, okay? But if you poison the environment, you're going to get sick too. You're going to struggle too because you're in the environment. If you're going to put all of us in a metaphorical prison, someone has to watch us. So you're in prison too. But they have to restrict it. Why? Why? Because it comes back down to reproduction. Who could reproduce with who? And if we all were able to consensually and reproduce freely, who would no longer exist? In their minds, they would exist genetically because it would, but they would just be mixed in with the darker melanated people. This has been the whole playbook. But I'm gonna play this video and then I really gotta go, guys, because I'm getting a little too passionate. So let me play this video and then I'm done. For real, for real. Thank you for joining my stream. I appreciate it. It's one love. And I hope that this conversation has been constructive. I hope that we were able to have a good conversation. And that's really what it's about, guys. I believe that no one should be mistreated. I believe that no one should be mistreated. I believe that no one should be mistreated. And I believe also that whoever needs the most constructive help receives it. That's what I believe. So I'm not promoting violence. I'm not promoting none of the stuff. I gotta say that because they got people that leave wild comments on my videos, and it's like, wow, the art of dialogue has almost totally and completely been lost.
Turning point where I was like, I'm never fucking with a white guy again. Like, there was just this level of like out of touch with reality, out of touch with what women, like any minority, women, people of color, fucking people with disabilities, like there was just this, I think, this privilege that I saw in white men, and not all of them, I'm not gonna like lump them all together, but at least the ones that I grew up with, that like it just completely turned me off. I just could never. It's not to say that I couldn't end up with a white guy, but it's like now I have a mixed kid, and like there are just certain values that I want to instill in her that like I don't know if like a white guy is going to be able to raise her the way, you know what I mean? Like now it's just deeper than that.
Guys, listen to what she just said. Let me go back. She has a what?
At least the ones that I grew up with, that like it just completely turned me off. Turning point where I was like, I'm never fucking with a white guy again. Like there was just this level of like out of touch with reality, out of touch with what women, like any minority, women, people of color, fucking people with disabilities, like there was just this, I think, this privilege that I saw in white men, and not all of them, I'm not gonna like lump them all together, but at least the ones that I grew up with, that like it just completely turned me off. I just could never. It's not to say that I couldn't end up with a white guy, but it's like now I have a mixed kid, and like there are just certain values that I want to instill in her that like I don't know if like a white guy is going to be able to raise her the way, you know what I mean? Like now it's just deeper than that.
And what she means is that now that she has a non-white child, that child would be eligible for discrimination. And this is the problem that the first Europeans had when they came over here. This is really an old problem. It's like when they first came here, it was a conversation on with the babies from the offspring be free. That's really what it was about. It was like, okay, we're white. We coming over here with all of these brown skinned people, and if we mix with them, are the children going to be free? Because we have this system that they had already created. Are the children going to be free? Or they're going to be eligible for slavery, guys? This is what they said. They actually passed laws on this. Are they going to be free or are they going to be eligible for slavery? And basically, what they said, you guys, is that they would be eligible for slavery, guys, that they would not be free. And let me find it. And it doesn't matter how light your skin is. They are hyper focused on this, and I can prove what I'm saying too. Everything I say, I pretty much can prove. How can I prove it? Okay, watch this. And I know the audio might be a little low, but watch this.
And it's not even living anymore. It's just a recurring subscription. You pay to live, you pay to work, you pay to eat, you pay to sleep. Rent, more than half your income. Groceries, doubled within a year. Gas, insurance, bills, taxes.
Their offspring can't even survive out here, guys. They definitely did it. So I would love to hear what you have to say. Do Latinos see themselves as white? I would say some do. And I would say that some manage to hold on to an indigenous identity. And I think that some were able to withstand the mental onslaught that colonization only ones, guys. I'm not trying to pick on Latinos. All people that have come into contact with Europeans suffer from identity issues because most of us have had our ancestral memory wiped away and erased from us. And it's been a good conversation. So thank you for joining me. As always, my name is Brian. Welcome to my channel, Official TMP Waves Media. And